I'm Leon Poindexter, and we're here this morning on this fine New England spring day at the Gloucester Marine Railways. Last week we finished putting on the last plank, the whiskey plank, and we had our little celebration. And now we've moved on to caulking. Caulking is a method that we use for keeping out the seawater. The tools and methods that we use go back at least 500 years. And even in 2011, there hasn't been a better method developed for caulking a boat.
The tools for a caulker are very specific tools. Your tools are a mallet and irons. And irons come in various shapes and various thicknesses depending on what it is you're trying to do. Mallets are very specific. They're designed this way because they're a heavy head. They're hard wood. When they drive, they put all their power in a direct drive, as opposed to a small wooden mallet, which doesn't have the heft, doesn't have the drive and the power to drive a caulking iron into the material to drive it into the seam. The traditional mallets are 16 inches by 16 inches. They're banded with a tool steel ring, so they don't, like mild steel would just bend and get worn, but tool steel holds up. The inner rings keep the head from splitting open. You notice there are nice grooves cut in here. They act as shock absorbers. So you drive like that, sort of spreads, or so it says, spreads all the shock in through the head and out of the head. In the old days, it was strictly done with oakum, which is a hemp fiber. In more modern times, we use cotton in the first thread that goes in the seam is cotton. As you see here, spun cotton. And then we put 2 or 3 strands of oakum on top of that. We drive it in with a fairly sharp iron, drive it down, and you go over the top of those depending on as the seam gets wider and you're filling it out, you go to various thicknesses, widths of the make-an iron, which is basically you make down or flatten out the material that you previously driven with this and with a mallet. You make that all down, give it a coat of paint, and then you put putty on the seam, and you're done. Other seams require more than you can drive with a hand tool. You need to go to horsing irons, which is basically caulking irons in large scale with handles, and in lieu of a caulking mallet, you use the large scale caulking beetle. And that is done as a 2-man job. One man holds this into the seam, the other man gives it a couple of belts. And again, in the same with this tool, you have narrow ones, you have wider ones, depending on whether you're deep in the seam or whether you're further out in the seam.
Okay, that does it this week for the caulking. Next week we're going to catch up with Rob, who is finishing up the new work on the transom.